So I had $3,000 burning a hole in my pocket. Of course I was going to buy a comic book. The real question was, what should I buy? I'd been eyeing Hulk 181. You know the one, first full appearance of Wolverine, one of the most, if not the most, in-demand book in the hobby. For that kind of money, I could buy a book in the 5.0 to 6.5 range. But then, something else caught my eye. 2 Western comics to be exact. Now you might be thinking, who in his right mind would buy 2 Western comics as opposed to Hulk 181? But then again, to each their own, live and let live. Here's the twist. I'm saying that these 2 Westerns are actually a better investment than Hulk 181 is right now. Yes, I said it. I'm bracing myself for an onslaught of dislikes and unfriendly comments, which of course is okay. You're entitled to. All I ask is that you wait to hear my rationale before you hit that dislike button. Let's start with Hulk 181. This comic is a beast, the king of the Bronze Age, a character that is up there with Spider-Man and Batman as the most popular superheroes in all the hobby. And as many of you all know, historically the safest investment bet on comic books has been the first appearances of major superhero characters. And Hulk 181 certainly fits that bill. This book's run has been incredible over the last few decades, but recently it partied a little too hard during the COVID go-go years. Relax, Wolverine's gonna be fine, but I don't see that book skyrocketing anytime soon. Like many other Bronze and Silver Age keys, they're still recovering from that boom. I foresee them being in the stagnant period for a little while longer. That said, I still think that Hulk 181 is a pretty good long-term investment. Don't be surprised to find me picking up a copy in the next few months. But here's the kicker, Hulk 181 has an Achilles heel. There's one major factor holding it back from being a rock star investment. We'll get back to that in just a moment. Now let's talk about Westerns in general. As opposed to superheroes, they've been one of the worst performing genres across all of comic books. They were huge for the silent generation and the baby boomers, but their appeal never crossed over to newer generations. Frankly, they just haven't aged well. I want to make it clear, I'm not saying that Westerns are going to perform better than superheroes in general or better than Hulk 181. What I'm saying is the 2 Western books that I'm talking about are special. Welcome to the collection, Tim Holt 17 and Ghost Rider 4. Alright, this is going to get even more weird. These are not your average Westerns. They feature the Ghost Rider. And no, not Marvel's Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider. I'm talking about Rex Fury, the Ghost Rider from Magazine Enterprises. There is a connection between the 2 Ghost Riders, but it's a long and convoluted tale. It involves expired trademarks, Dick Ayers, a ghost transforming into a phantom, Mephisto, a flesh and blood horse being replaced by a steel horse, like Bon Jovi talks about. But let's not get bogged down with that. What really caught my attention is the art. My God, check out the covers. Magnifique. The legendary Frank Frazetta, who was just coming into his own as a cover artist, created masterpieces for these 2 issues. Frazetta would go on to become one of the most famous fantasy artists of all time, with some of his art selling for millions of dollars. These covers are, not just good covers, they are great. They're so amazing that they transcend genre. Personally, I love that dark, mysterious vibe that some covers have. When I see Ghost Rider done by Frazetta, it reminds me of like Detective Comics 31 or More Fun 54. Now, speaking of investment, here's why I think these 2 books are undervalued. It's really hard to find Golden Age books with truly great covers that cost less than these 2. In fact, I bought them both for less money than it would have cost me to buy a Hulk 181 at a 6.0 or a 6.5. Now, I can guess what many of you all are thinking. Okay, Keston, you're really into cool covers, but how in the world can you make an argument that these 2 books are better investments than Hulk 181? Remember that Achilles heel that I was talking about? Here it is. There are a lot of copies out there. According to CGC Census, nearly 20,000, compared to less than 100 on Census for either one of the Ghost Rider books. Of course, we can quibble about the relationship between CGC Census and how many books actually exist. I have to believe that for every 100 copies of Hulk 181, you might be able to find 1 of these books. So even though the demand is lower for Tim Holt 17 or Ghost Rider 4, the combination of scarcity and that amazing artwork makes me think that it's a great investment opportunity at the current prices. Of course, this is an empirical question. Hopefully I'll be doing YouTube videos in 2030 and I'll revisit this question. I have one final point, but before I do, I would like to ask you a question. In 5 years' time, do you think that Hulk 181 will be the better investment, or do you agree with me? And finally, money. Of course, it's a factor when I make a decision to buy a comic book or not, but it's not even my primary reason. If you want to hear more about what actually guides my collecting decisions, check out this video. Thanks so much for watching, my friends, and I hope to see you around real soon. Welcome to the collection, Tim Holt 17 and Ghost Rider 4. This is like some kind of weird Western comic book menage a trois.